and then the cops bring you in. You guys clear them, and then they
Yeah.
go to jail.
Yeah, then they go to jail.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the EJMast Plus podcast. I'm your host, Elson Mast, and today I have one of my other good friends with me, and he's going to introduce himself now.
Hi, my name is Elmer Schrock. I am a new grad nurse that works at Mercy Health Emergency Department. I have been working at this emergency department as a tech for the last 2 years. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for that. So kind of schedule today is, since he works in the ER, he's going to tell us a few stories, and we're going to have that sprinkled throughout. I'm going to run over to schedule real quick. We're going to have a story here right after this, and then we're going to talk a little bit about his college experience for a couple minutes, and then be another story, and then I'm going to ask him some questions. If you're lucky, I might have chapters down there if you're watching Spotify, so you can check that out. And if you look down there and there's no chapters, then you just didn't get lucky today. Anyway, so for the first story, what can you tell us?
So, just speaking about the first story I thought about was just some of the one thing that we face in the emergency department is sometimes, we're there to save lives, and we want to save lives, and we want to help people get better. Sometimes that doesn't happen. And it is a little bit of a helpless feeling, not just a little bit, it is a helpless feeling. Sometimes that's kind of where my first story is. And one night, it was probably around midnight, we get a call from EMS. They're bringing in a 70-something-year-old female that is sick person, and they don't give us much usually on their report. Basically, vitals are relatively stable, heart rate's a little up, blood pressure's a little down, but anyway, they'll be there in 10 minutes. So because of the vague comments and we decided to take a look at the patient when it rolls in to see which room we're going to send it in. Patient rolls in, and I'm the tech on the floor. And all these stories, by the way, are going to be as a tech. I'm a brand new nurse, so I haven't done much as nurses. But anyway, I was a tech
You
on.
work night shift, right?
Yeah, I work night shift, and so roll in. I took one look at this patient, and I'm just like, that patient is sick, very sick. So we decided to go to room 2, which is a trauma bay, because we knew there's probably going to be intubated. The patient was conscious, but she only knew her name. And roll into room 2. The nurse and I get to work. And
you said intubate. What's that?
When we intubate somebody, basically we're gonna put a tube into your airway here through the mouth, and we're gonna breathe for you. You're gonna be obviously sedated, like you don't feel it, and because if you were conscious, your gag reflex would want to cough that tube out, and so we're gonna sedate you first.
So you sedate them and then put a tube in
so that we can control the airway, because
breathing,
so that we can, because the rule number 1 is if you have no airway, you have no patient. And so, and because of the heart rate being elevated, blood pressure being so, and just looking at her with no known trauma, like we couldn't tell that she was hurt anywhere really. She was complaining of leg pain. You right away start thinking down the line of there's a condition that we call septic shock, and it's a systemic bloodstream infection, and you will die unless we fix that. And so that's what we were suspecting just looking at her. So just a little bit about the patient. The patient is probably 80 pounds soaking wet. So this is a very lightweight patient, which is even more precarious. The hygiene was terrible, and she supposedly came from home. And the daughter said she primarily takes care of herself. So anyway, we get in, and just touching her, you could tell she was very cold. So obviously get the IVs into her, get the labs, get all the cultures. Like we take cultures out of her nose to check for flu and COVID and RSV, and we take throat samples for your strep and the and but her, as we were working, the blood pressure kept dropping, so it's bad sign, and so we knew it's only a matter of time till she's going to be intubated. And so the nurse we need to put a catheter into her bladder because she wasn't able to control her bladder, and besides we needed that to measure the temperature as well. That's the most accurate way to get a temperature. So we get this stuff started, and we take all these cultures before we run the antibiotic, because we can't, after the antibiotic is running, we can't take cultures because we don't get an accurate reading of that anymore, right? So the nurse was like, okay, we got all the blood and stuff. Then we decided, and we could tell she was wearing a brief, we could tell that she had a mess, right? And so no problem. We'll clean her up, get the catheter into her, and go from there. We undid the brief, and she had been in that brief for a long time. My guess is a couple of days. And so there was old stool that was dry, there was new stool, and the nurse, we rolled the patient my way, had a massive pressure ulcer right on her seat. And a pressure ulcer is the medical term for a bed sore, and all the way into the bone. And then you're like, oh my goodness, we have a sick person. Then now we have this, and the nurse takes a wipe to clean her, and it just peeled the skin and everything right off. So we got the doctor in right away. Obviously, had to document that. And the doctor, so we controlled the bleeding by putting pads on, but it's like she's dying from the sepsis, so we need to fix that first. And we just basically covered it up the best we could, got the catheter into her, and you're just like, that her prognosis or her future is not looking good. And about that time, the doctor was like, the blood pressure just kept dropping. So now the next thing we do when that starts happening, when we can't control the blood pressure, is we put a central line in. And we either go to the subclavian vein up here, or we go to the femoral vein, and we put in this basically a gigantic IV that has three tubes. The one goes right into the top part of the vena. We call it the vena cava of the heart, where it is shooting medicine right into the heart. And we have to do that to get this blood, to control this blood pressure. Because if you lose your blood pressure, the blood's just going to sit there, right? And it's not going to move. And on top of that, she's hyperthermic. So
Which is what
too cold. Like I
hyperthermic.
forget what her core temp was. It was 94, I think, rectal, which is not good. And and of course the family's wondering what's going to happen, and the doctor was just honest with them. Like, if she survives the sepsis, now we have to deal with clearly the source of the infection was that massive pressure ulcer, which was very infected, but there's a chance she might have had a flu. She might have had something to kind of dump her over the edge. But
So the sepsis comes from like an infection a lot of
yes,
times, or
sepsis always is a result of infection. Always, it is not a disease. It is a condition that comes because of something else is going on. And yeah, she went to ICU a couple hours later, and the next morning we found out she didn't make it. And you think of, on one hand, you would have wanted her to survive because she was only 70 something. But with the extent of her injuries, she had a long, hard row of recovery ahead of her. And so it is a helpless feeling. because you just watch this patient deteriorate. And finally, 4 hours later, the blood pressure was finally stopped going down, and we actually bumped it up a little bit. It was stable for now, but very precarious.
So everything just kept like, it felt like just one thing after another just kept going wrong.
It's just
and you're
like,
just
we're
like,
just not winning this
just like
thing. And the
desperate battle of like,
yeah.
when you're not winning, it's just like not much you can do about
Like,
it. You know?
and when can we stop? We try all these things, we run all these meds, and when you run, we run meds to stabilize the blood pressure. We run meds to fight the infection. And obviously, there's a fluid loss too, and so we're trying to get this fluid back going again. And it is, that is the reality of working in the. And you see a lot of that stuff. You see a lot of things, and there's days when you're just like, I thought we were supposed to save lives, But yeah, that's sort of the first story, and.
So do you think like, if she came in too late, or do you think she could have come in earlier? Is there like, in a case like that, is there not much indication until it's kind of too late already?
A person wonders what the home dynamics were like. Yes, if she would have came in earlier, we could have definitely done something. It would have been much more hope. She came in too late because she was almost, so there's 4 stages of sepsis. We have the initial stage, we have the progressive stage, we have the initial stage, compensatory stage, the progressive stage, and refractory stage. The initial stage is your running a little bit of a temperature, white count's a little high. Then the compensatory stage is when the body is trying to compensate for this. The heart rate goes up to try to get the blood pressure where it needs to be, try to get the circulation where it needs to be.
Is the blood pressure too low?
Yeah.
And so the heart rate goes up.
And the heart rate is
compensate?
because the blood pressure is too low, the blood's not getting out, and the brain is telling, hey, I need blood, and the heart is trying to compensate for this. In the progressive stage, it gets really, really hard to come back from that, because then the body is trying so hard to survive, it will now stop putting blood to the fingers and the toes, and it will only keep blood here and your brain, maybe. And to come back from that is really, really hard. And then the refractory stage, there's no comeback. All your major organs start shutting down, and it will take a miracle to come back from that.
So you would have thought she was already in progressive?
She was right at that line of being in the progressive stage already, and we knew we had a hard battle to fight. And you don't know, like, she lived at home. Did they not know? And she could have refused. She could have said the children maybe wanted her to come, and she said, no, I'm not going because it'll all be all right. So I have no clue what the dynamics were at home.
Yeah.
But yes, if she would have came in earlier, then we would have definitely had more of a chance.
I thought, so your body will actually like kind of stop running blood to your hands and stuff just to keep the vitals going. That's kind of interesting. I didn't realize
the human body is very fascinating in that aspect. It is a very resilient body, and it will try hard to stay alive. Actually,
Okay, so now we can go into a little bit about your college, kind of how you decided to stop framing houses and go work in the ER.
Yeah. So basically, working in healthcare was always a childhood dream. And, I always kind of did whatever was in front of me. And, we sold our company in Michigan. All of a sudden, I had no job. I had a friend down here that was like, hey, we need construction guys bad. It's like, okay, well, here I have an opportunity. Take that. In the back of my mind, it's like, I am going to go into healthcare some point. basically, I started doing volunteer search and rescue with Christian Aid Ministries, and that kind of lit the fire even more. I was like, yes, this is definitely the direction I wanted to go. Original plan was to be in EMT paramedic. However, looking at that and being paid, especially with the public service, you had to be cross-trained as a firefighter, and I did not want to get anywhere near a fire suit.
You said none of that.
No, I was like, there ain't no way I'm getting into that fire suit. I could
Can't pay me enough for this, huh?
Yeah, I could have worked privately and like do concerts, sports and stuff like that. But that wasn't really my forte, I thought. And then, then I had, of course, I served with Search and Rescue. I served with Randy Hirschberger. And Randy, if you're watching, thanks for everything. He was the one that got me into it. And yeah, just literally, I knew I had to get a GED, got my GED in the spring of 22, spring/summer of 22, looking at nursing programs. I was too late to get into the 2022 nursing program with Southern State. I knew that's where I wanted to go because it was the school closest to my house, very reputable. They had a program going for 30 some years. And I was too late for the 2022 nursing class anyway, so I thought, hey, I'm going to spend the whole year doing my prereqs, like my anatomy, physiology, my English comp, sociology, all that, before I get into the actual program to help lighten that load. So that's what I did. Started in August of 22, and a year later, August of 23, I was in the nursing program. And that's where it gets really intense. It gets very intense there. You have a lot of clinicals on it's mandatory class time. You got to go to class. It is in person, and then you have your sim labs. I graduated this spring.
When did you start working actually in the medical field? I guess as a tech.
In the summer of 23, I went to Mercy Health in the emergency department as a tech.
Summer of 23.
Of 23, yes.
And
just before I went into the nursing program.
Just before you actually went into the nursing program.
So and that was super valuable.
So you would have been close to getting your prereqs done, I guess.
Yes, probably, yeah. I had all but 2 of them done. Yeah, 2 of them I did not have done. And I did that in the summer of 24.
So you said August 22, you started the prereqs. Were you still working in the framing at that point?
Yes, I was framing until June of 23. But I was only doing 3 days a week.
Yeah.
If that.
Got it. And so you did end up going to that Southern State, right?
Yes. No. Very good program.
Good
if anybody's out there that wants to go to a nursing program, Southern State, that's the way to go right there. It is very intense, but they got good instructors. They got a good program.
They're based in Hillsborough there?
Hillsborough. I did the majority of my actual nursing. The RN program is at Hillsborough. The LPN program is at Brown County. And then my prereqs I was allowed to do in Brown County. Like I did my EMP in Brown County. I did my English comp in Brown County. But for the actual class, I had to go to Hillsborough.
Okay, thanks for telling us a little bit about your college experience there. So next up is another story. See what you have for us. Maybe this patient will survive. We'll see what happens here.
Yeah. So this story is the reason why we all stay in healthcare.
So the first one is why you want to leave, and this is why you stay.
Yeah, the first story is, I can't tell you how many of my coworkers are like, I am done with nursing or emergency nursing. Mm-hmm. But then we turn around and we come back. And it's because of this next story. And it seems like we get just enough of stories like this next one to keep us in the game. And it is 10:30 at night. No, it's 11:30 at night. Get a call from EJMast. We have a 68-year-old coming in with a stroke. And she was found, her daughter found her at 10:30 in her house. Right side was completely paralyzed. And she was slurring her words, just a classic stroke. They come rolling in. Obviously, we do a stroke workup. and everything happens fast because we use a medication called TNK, which is a clot buster, and we have a short window to give that. And so we want to find out what's happening so that we can give it. And the most important thing about strokes is we want to know the last known well. When the last time was they were normal. And the daughter said that her sister-in-law was at her mom's house at 1:30 a.m. in the afternoon, and she was normal at that point. She left. Mom was still in the recliner when she left, and they found her in the recliner at 10:30. Now she's having a stroke, so she never moved. We don't know what happened. So the time gap is too large. It is no longer a candidate for a clot buster. It's too dangerous, right? So we run.
So if you knew that, like someone say would have left there at 9:30, she was completely fine.
Yes.
And then maybe you would know, okay, it was between 9:30 and 10:30 she had a stroke, and so maybe it would have been close enough.
Then we would have had something.
Mm-hmm.
And
so the time frame was too big. It was like kind of uncertain when it happened.
And so the way it works, when an EMS calls in with stroke alert, they roll in the door, we send them straight to the scanner because time is brain. And so as soon as they roll in the door, while the tech at the HUC is registering them, you are getting a set of vitals right up there on the cot. You are looking for an IV right there on the cot. And you're rolling over to the scanner, and usually by the time we get to the scanner, we've got an IV going, we've got their vitals, and we immediately take the blood to the lab to get that going. We send her to the scanner, and they run it through the scanner. And so the way radiology works, if there's a stroke alert or if there is anything like that, that scan gets pushed to the top to be read first, right? Our doctors, they can see some of that right there, but to get an official report, the radiologist has to read it, right? And so that scan gets pushed to the top. And so we sent her back, got her back, of course, do the EKG. We call UC Stroke Team. They do a virtual interview with the patient, tell us what they would recommend. And by that time, we got...
So UC Stroke Team, they're not at that hospital?
They are not physically at the location, but they are a phone call away.
You do like a video call? Or?
Yes, we do a video call. And they are a great resource to help us decide what we're going to do. And about that time, because they can even look at the patient and have a pretty good clue on what's going on, where the occlusion is or whether it's a hemorrhagic stroke. I forgot to mention there are two types of strokes. One is what we call an ischemic stroke, which is a blockage. The blood vessel is blocked by a blood clot. Then there's the hemorrhagic stroke where they're bleeding. And so they're actually bleeding. So obviously if there's a hemorrhagic stroke, we're not going to give a clot buster because then they're going to bleed even more.
That's kind of a blood thinner.
Yeah, it is a clot buster. It will stop clotting everywhere in your body. It's a very dangerous medication.
So you don't want to get a cut after that.
It's a miracle drug because we have saved a lot of people because it eats the clot. But we've had people that have died 3 days later because of a head bleed because of the stuff. So you really
don't want to cut after you have that.
No, you want to have all the IVs in. You want to do everything before you get the medication, and it's a very dangerous med. Anyway, so we got her back, did the EKG. Of course, we do glucose checks. We do we have an NIH scale where we ask the patient a ton of questions to figure out what is, are they getting worse? Are they getting better with their movement? Are we having more loss? Are we getting better, And in a matter of, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, we get a call from the radiology saying, hey, there is a large vessel occlusion. So one of her large vessels is pretty much blocked. Well, immediately that means we got to get a bird. And so we had a helicopter coming in, it was like 15 minutes out. We, of course, called the stroke team again. The stroke team had called Jewish, our neuro hospital, and They got everything arranged there. With neurosurgery, she was going straight to the operating room.
So you don't do anything high profile like that.
Nope.
You try to kind of
Nope.
stabilize them,
Yep.
and then get them to somewhere
Because
where
we
they can fix
we
it.
don't have neurosurgery. We have a neurologist at our hospital, but not neurosurgery. So
And what the stroke a lot of times happens right when there's not enough blood to the brain.
yes,
Is that
yeah,
kind of it?
and your brain has zero storage for energy, zero. So it has to have a blood supply, and if that blood supply gets cut off, your brain cells will die very, very quickly. And so like I said, time is brain. The faster we get to the intervention, the less brain cells will die. Now, the brain is very, very phenomenal at providing new pathways to try to get new brain. It is like it will recover. That's why therapy is such a huge part of this. And yeah, the bird lands. 15 minutes later, ship her off to Jewish, and 2.5 hours later, I think they called us back and said that yeah, they removed the blood clot. She's responding very, very well to that, because usually there's like instant response. Like as soon as you open that up, it is just incredible giving somebody T and K. The right hand maybe can't move. You give them that, all of a sudden they can move their hand. It is cool.
What's the TNK is like the...
That's that clot buster. And we obviously immediately put them on a blood thinner, which does not bust clots, but it keeps it from clotting even more. So she obviously went with a heparin drip, which is one of the major IV blood thinners that we use. Yeah.
So the surgeon up there, how did they go about removing
that? I'm not sure. They sent her to the cath lab, and they go in, I think, through the vein in the leg, and they go up in there and with a catheter, and they open it. At least that's what we were told.
They actually that's not just a medicine they shoot it up with.
No.
So they
a physical removal of that, and that's just cool. And they told us she's gonna make a really good recovery. And so those are the times when you're like, that's why I do this job. That's why, and it seems we don't get enough of that. Well, the problem is we get things like that, and we kind of forget about them, right? Because everything went the way it was supposed to. And then when things don't go the way we wish, and you remember those. It's just like, should we have done something differently? Or, but yeah, that is the fun. That's the fun part about working in the emergency department.
When you can save someone's life.
Yeah,
like that.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so that was a pretty good story where the patient survives, which is a good thing. So at this point, we're gonna go into a few questions. I asked some people. I wasn't sure what to ask.
Sure.
New a tech or a new RN, and so I asked some people, and they asked some questions, and so kind of something they were wondering is do you get a lot of intense patients in the ER, or is there a lot of just you didn't really need the ER that much, or obviously with the situation you just mentioned with the stroke, it's high levels of intensity. It's just is there a lot of that, or is there also a lot of someone maybe broke their leg and you can maybe have a little bit more time to fix that or whatever?
It varies so much. Some nights, I worked a shift one night, we had 8 stroke alerts. Now, granted, not all of those got helicopter rides, but they all were stroke rule outs. And it's just what are these people drinking? Or who is casting a spell on Claremont County? And
was it on a Sunday night?
Not necessarily. It is, but then but I've worked a shift as well where, this only ever happened one time. One shift, I worked one night shift where we did not admit a single patient. Okay, or not at Claremont. We shipped 2. So technically we admitted 2 people to the hospital. The rest all got discharged. That is rare. And it was just one of those nights where It was relatively busy. The census were normal, or what we call normal, but it was a lot of cough and sneeze, body aches, sprained ankles. I did a couple of splints that night, so that means there was probably a couple broken bones, maybe, or at the very least some sprains. But it was actually a fun night because we had a lot of people, but the acuity or the level of severity of injury was low.
They're probably not going to die from it.
Yeah, we just moved people. Like it was cool. But it just varies. Some nights you just have usually it's a healthy mix.
You get some intense stuff,
yes.
some less intense
Yeah,
stuff.
and we see anywhere between 85 to 120 people a day. And
is that during your shift or complete 24 hours?
That's I think the 24-hour cycle. At night we tend to get more intense stuff because most people they're only going to come in at night if there's something wrong. There are some people that clearly know the system and they'll come in on something very simple at 3 o'clock in the morning because they know it won't be busy. They don't want there's a couple of those, but the majority of the people that come
most of the time, if they're going to get up for it, it's going to be bad.
It's going to be something legitimate. Maybe we can fix it and send it home, or give them enough of a stabilizer where they can go to the family doctor in a week or 2 weeks or whatever. But it is usually a healthy mix. You do because there are some nights where our ER is divided into two zones. We have the acute zone and we have the rapid assessment zone. The rapid assessment is designed for high turnover. It's for people who don't need rooms, people who just have a flu. Where the acute side is where people have to have a monitor. They're probably going to be on oxygen.
Where you hook them up to all the machines and they're probably going to have to stay for a while.
And sometimes that side is busy. Like it's just EMS after EMS, or there's just sick person after sick person walks through the door. But all in all, like my last shift that I worked was a very, very healthy mix.
The reason I asked about if it was Sunday night for the strokes, Zig Ziglar once said that a lot of strokes happen on Sunday night because people are stressed so bad they're going to work on Monday. He said, some of you are literally dying to go to work. Right. He said, if it's that stressful, you should probably quit your job.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
But, so, kind of what triggers the kind of high stress, tension, energy? Is it a lot of times strokes, heart attack, that type of thing, or kind of what kicks things into overdrive?
What gets your adrenaline going is your strokes, your massive stroke. Like they're stroking. Versus sometimes you have somebody comes in that's just very vague, and you find out, they are having a stroke. Like they maybe had a partial blockage or whatever. Then it's what we call STEMIs, which is a very serious heart attack. Another one that gets you going really, really fast is if EMS or the lobby call you on the radio and they have an active labor in the lobby. When someone's having a baby, that gets you going. Especially in our hospital because we do not have OB, and so
you're not really equipped.
We can deliver the baby, but you're going to get shipped almost immediately. You try to convince the baby to stay in until they transfer up, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it don't happen that way.
So you don't do that as a hospital. You don't deliver babies there. It's just in
the emergency room we can.
Yeah,
but
in emergencies, it's not like
it is not ideal.
Where the parents go to have their child and
most moms do not go to the most moms don't plan to have their babies in the emergency department.
Yeah.
That's usually not the plan because it is chaos. It is 100% chaos. But it is that, and then obviously your violence. violence. That gets you on high alert.
What is a lot of times your violence would result from like drugs and stuff, and they would be in because of the drugs.
Yep. Or they have to come in for jail clearance, or
Is the jail clearance like if they
like
get
jail.
in trouble with the cops?
They can take some very minor injuries, but they can't take, like, for example, Claremont County's policy is if you get tased, you have to come into the emergency department to get cleared.
So jail clearance would basically be like you get in trouble with the cops, and then the cops bring you in, you guys clear them, and then they go to jail.
Yeah, then they go to jail, and they do not want to go to jail. And there's some of those are good enough that they'll complain of something that they know that cause they have to take them to the hospital to try to get out. Well,
it doesn't work like that.
You're gonna end up going.
You're just delaying the inevitable. I mean, you're gonna go to jail, bro.
Exactly.
If you want to stay out of jail, then don't do stuff that'll get you in jail, right?
Yeah. So that, of course, gets your adrenaline going, especially when things are kind of quiet and all of a sudden you hear this thud and a bang and you hear people running and, yeah.
You're like, oh, boy.
Yeah.
Oh, boy, stuff's about to get wild.
Exactly.
So you would say kind of like strokes, maybe heart attacks,
and
those are violence stuff.
And then, of course, hemorrhages. If somebody's bleeding, that really gets you. That gets your adrenaline.
Does that? Too. What does a lot of times would cause that? I guess.
Usually, it's trauma of some sort. Maybe a stab wound, gunshot wound, or a.
Would it be like just accidental?
Yes, like people cut themselves on a piece of glass, and I'm talking, maybe a large piece of glass. And they got a massive cut.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that, and
maybe your construction buddy.
Yes,
your construction buddy kind of does something with his circular saw that he shouldn't have.
Exactly. Yep. And so when you have a blood trail, that always gets you going.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, yeah, if it's something that we think you're going to die relatively shortly, that kind of gets you.
It kind of gets you.
Yeah. And those always come in through the front door.
Mm-hmm.
Like EJMast, like they'll fly them, right? Or once in a great while, EJMast will bring somebody like that in. Well, they'll bring us STEMIs and strokes, but I'm talking about hemorrhages. Oftentimes, very rarely do they bring them to us to stabilize because our birds are 10 minutes out, 15 minutes out, typically.
And when you say birds, you're talking about the helicopters.
Yeah. And so it's not. Yeah, it won't.
It's not ideal.
It's not ideal, but then we don't see them. They go straight to trauma surgery.
Would they say there'd be something like that? Would they kind of stabilize them from the ambulance and the EMTs?
Because
someone stabilize them and then fly them from the site.
They can do a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They can do a lot. The times when it gets tricky is if they can't get the bleeding stopped and they need a rapid blood infusion, then they come to us typically.
So they wouldn't really have blood on the ambulance?
Not on the ambulance. Now, we can start blood and send blood with the helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I've heard rare cases, like if the helicopter is leaving UC, they might be able to bring some blood with them, but nah, it's typically we have to provide blood.
Mm-hmm.
But once we give them blood, the crew on the helicopter can run blood.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, they can do that.
Okay, so kind of as a tech, what did you do? And it seems like now that you're going to be probably getting your license here soon, your role will probably shift a little bit.
Yes.
So kind of what did you do as a tech?
As a tech, my job was two parts. Part one was on the floor. And if I was on the floor, I would help the nurses with patient care. As a basic tech, I could not do IVs. I would do straight sticks. If we just needed a straight stick, it's when the needle goes in, we draw the blood, we take the needle out.
Mm-hmm.
I could do straight sticks. I would do splints. Did a lot of splints.
So IV would be like they put it in, leave it there. You couldn't do that, but you could take someone's blood or
but I could take the blood. I could take urine samples. I could put in a straight catheter as a basic tech. I put the catheter in the bladder, drain the bladder, take the catheter back out. And so, but then a year later, I became an advanced tech, Well, then I was allowed to do IVs. I was allowed to do indwelling catheters that stayed in the bladder. I was allowed a little bit more on like eye irrigation, a few things like that. And that was, but there was a lot of things to do as a tech on the floor. I mean, just running after stuff, keeping the room stocked.
So that would be a little bit like that wouldn't be in the ER. In the ER.
Yes.
Would that be? So that is in the ER.
Yeah.
Where you do? Okay.
Yeah. And on techs on a floor, I've been told they don't do as much. Like.
But is there rooms in the ER?
Yes.
So it would be kind of like the ER, but there's still rooms.
Yeah, there are rooms there where the patient, but they never stay there, right? They always go upstairs, or they go home, or they go to the next facility, or whatever.
You said eye irrigation. That sounds kind of interesting.
Yeah.
What's that for?
When
Like
people put all kinds of things in their eyes, whether it's we have this little gadget that you can put in there, hook it up to a bag of fluid, it'll flush the eye continually.
oh, so like
let's say you squirted gasoline in your eye, or whatever.
it's basically just if you get something in there that's not supposed to be, or like
exactly.
really bad sawdust or something.
Yes. And then I did a lot of wound care. People come in all bloody, clean them up. Then it's just, and there's always, and then the second part of my job was working the HUC, what we call the HUC. I don't even know what the HUC stands for. It's HUC, but I work the desk. I'm there. I register the people that come in by squads. I do the transfers. When we're transferring somebody, there's a ton of paperwork that got to be done. I call other doctors to talk to our doctor. Then I have three monitors. One monitor here has all the vitals from all these people in their rooms, right? They put their vitals right to me so I can watch them. My monitor in the center takes care of like the patient, like the board, the patient charts. I see all of that. My monitor over here has cameras, and so I can watch too in case somebody gets getting beat up somewhere. And so our psych room, we have 4 psych rooms. Those all have cameras in the room. Otherwise, the cameras are on the halls. Our other rooms do not have cameras in them. But and then I watch that. I got cameras on the outside of the lobby.
You're just kind of monitoring everything.
I monitor the
I just looked up on Google, and it says it's a health unit coordinator.
Yeah.
So I guess that's pretty good. Pretty good description. It sounds like you just kind of coordinate everything.
There's constantly people that need phone calls placed, and there's just a lot of, there's actually, like, I would say my stress came from working that HUC. Because sometimes there's times when I'm answering the phone, I have 4 people on hold, and I got to remember which person goes to who,
Yeah.
And then
there's just a lot to keep track of.
Then there's times when you have a helicopter, you're flying somebody out, you got a respiratory distress coming in, and you've got to call respiratory for them, you got to call this person for them, and they're coming in, and then I also have to find transport to get people back to the nursing home. They come in by ambulance, they got to leave by ambulance, get an ambulance scheduled for that.
So you got to call a whole lot of people in a short amount of time. Sometimes,
and so sometimes
you get to talking really fast.
Sometimes you just, and there's times when, like, I was working the HUC one night when we had a baby, and the doctor's in the room going, "Hey, Elmer, call this person." So I would call him, and they'd be like, "Hey, Elmer, call this," and and they'd be like, "Tell him," and I was on the phone. Well, I literally had 2 phones one time. I was talking to Cincinnati Children's on one phone and UC on the other phone, and they're like, talking about this baby, it was a drug baby, and, so it's like, I'd be telling children, "Hey, they're saying this," and that's like, "Hey," because the mom went to UC.
Yeah, but you need a three-way phone at that point, not you. You were just like the central hub instead of a 3-way phone, right?
And it should have been a 3-way call, but because of the way everything happened so fast, we didn't have time to set up a 3-way call. Anyway,
so you just there like...
because this phone was ringing. I picked up this phone, and another phone was ringing. I had 2 phones within reach, right? So I was listening to both of them.
Did they have a lot of times just one person on the HUC there?
Yeah.
I see.
And if it's, so let's say I'm on the floor, and my counterpart is on the HUC. Well, I try my best to kind of watch. If I see that, oh my goodness, we got a lot of transports going on, I'll go and say, "Hey, can I help?" And then I'll do some paperwork for her, for him or whatever. Usually it's a her at night, because I don't have any male coworkers at night. But yeah, and then we'll help each other. But that's kind of the tech role.
So like on the center screen, basically someone comes in with their phone's broke or whatever, you put in and be like Elson Mast and your date of birth, and you enter all that stuff. All the patient records basically would be kind of your center screen, and then you got your cameras over here and your vitals over here, and you're just kind of monitoring everything, entering patients, taking phone calls, shipping people out.
Yeah, and then the patients will also call you if they needed something, right? So you got that phone to watch too.
So would that, like, if you're and you have that phone beside your bed and you call like the front desk, that would go to you.
Yep, that'd be me.
If you'd be
and then you got to get on the radio and tell the nurse about this person, and
so you would have radios on most of the nurses, or everyone has radios.
Yep.
Like, is it in their ears or?
Yep.
So you wouldn't really hear it.
Yeah, you wouldn't hear it. We try now. There's a few of them that don't wear earpieces, but we're required to wear earpieces, which I did almost immediately because I hated to hear the radio. I had to have it clipped here, and I had to have the volume up. And it's not nice for a patient when you're in their room and they're not allowed to eat, and somebody gets on the radio and goes, "Hey, I'm ordering from McDonald's. Does anybody want anything?" That's not very nice, So,
So they say that on the radio sometimes.
oh yeah, So it is. But besides, who wants to hear all that traffic? And it's
is the
borderline
ER
HIPAA violation there.
Is the radio, ER radio, on a different frequency than the regular hospital, or does it all?
Yes, it is, because we can't hear the others; they can't hear us. And then we have our radios are capable of, we can switch channels, just to hit a button, and we can get to security. Security can talk to us. We can talk to, like, I can go to channel 3, talk to security, but security cannot hear us, our regular chatter. They can only hear us if we call them.
So you specifically switch to that channel, but you're like, yo, we need security down here. This guy's being wild.
Right. So and so you've got a lot of things going on, with, and a huge percent of the time, and that's why I love working nights, because nights the phones were not as busy. The phone calls that were happening were all internal, right? Or had to do with patient care, not everybody's neighbor and family calling us to see what's happening with their.
I mean, like, yo, is Jane Doe doing okay?
Exactly. You're like, and yeah, I've had times when it was just chaos. And when I started working there 2 years ago, we had to also answer the squad radio and the squad phone. That was a nightmare. Finally they cut that off. They now make the nurses answer that.
Where was the squad?
I had a
radio?
squad phone right beside me.
Which would be the people coming in?
Yeah, EMS can call us either via phone or they can call us on the radio. The radio is like behind me. And so that phone and the radio would ring, and you were responsible for that. And finally they cut that out. They said the nurse is going to take care of that.
They said
and they should, because techs, we're not medically trained. As a tech, I learned very, very quickly the questions I needed to ask. If I needed to ask questions, because like some medics are really good at giving you a report, others are not. I'm not going to mention any names, but and so the nurses knew better what questions to ask, because
but you eventually learn, like, the doctor's going to want to know this, and this. And so if the EMT calls in and he doesn't hit this and this, then I'm going to ask him about that and that.
100%.
And there's some people out there that just kind of don't say quite as much, and then you have to ask
and
them
then
questions.
Others will be like, have a speech for you.
Have all their ducks in a row,
And those are actually, I don't mind listening to a speech, honestly, because it gives you a picture of what's coming in. Because some guys are like, they're bringing this person in, vitals are stable, and they walk in the door, and it is not as stable as we thought. But anyway.
And then, what does your normal workday look like? I guess that's kind of the same question, but switching over into RN now, if you get your license, what's it going to look like?
So what's it going to look like? The biggest difference as an RN versus a tech is the huck is gone. I don't have the huck anymore. I am glad for that experience because that way, as a nurse, if let's say I'm not as busy and I need neurosurgery, I can call neurosurgery myself now.
You can call them yourself because you know that poor huck operator already got enough going,
right,
you know,
or whatever. Or I can schedule my own ambulance to get my patient home if the huck is really busy. Another thing that's going to be very different as a tech, if I was on the floor, if there were two techs on the floor, one of us would take the rapid assessment, one of us would take acute. At night, after 11 p.m., it was only two techs, one at the huck, one on the floor. And so you were in the whole department if you were on the floor. The difference as a nurse is if I work in acute, I have a zone. I have 4 patients. And if I work in rapid assessment, I might have a lot more patients, but these patients don't have rooms. They got simple stuff, you know.
So you're kind of switch back and forth.
Yeah. And so typically they let you choose. They kind of try to rotate the people, you know, like there are some nurses that they love their certain zone and they love that zone. And they love to have it. And others are like, you can have that zone. I don't care.
Because they just kind of know where everything is then, or what?
That okay, so our acute is divided into 3 zones. We have 2 zones have 1 trauma bay apiece. The trauma bays get split. One trauma goes with this zone, 1 trauma goes with this zone. So you know that if you have that zone, you potentially get trauma, right? You're potentially getting sick people.
Which would be the people coming in with like heart attacks, all that stuff we talked about earlier.
And then there's then we have the 3rd zone that is just 4 rooms, 4 regular rooms, and you know you can have very sick people anywhere. You know, just because you're sick doesn't mean you're going to go to trauma. But trauma is basically if you need room to work, like to sedate or to intubate somebody. Respiratory is there taking care of the head. They're helping the doctor with the airway. The nurses is there doing the medication for the sedation and all that.
So that would be the nurse, not the tech. Would be doing medication.
Yeah.
So now as an RN, you could do more medication and stuff.
And so, but all kind of be in one little place. Like there's times when an RN has zones 10 to 13, and the room's 10 to 13. She doesn't have a clue what's happening from 6 to 9. You know, and
you said the traumas are split into different.
Yeah.
So like maybe you'd be working on a trauma over here and you have no clue, but they would have one over there.
There's times when, and we've had them already, where we had a code in one room and we're doing chest compression trying to get this person going, and the nurses and rads had no idea what was happening. You know, we try to alert because if there's a code running, you want at least, obviously the doctor's going to be there, obviously the respiratory is going to be there, they want a tech in there because they want the tech to do the chest compressions or run the Lucas, which is the mechanical chest compressions. Then they want, 3 nurses, I think? There's a lot of people tied up there.
So code would be like
when somebody loses a pulse. When you have no pulse, it's a code. Like they are dying.
And so you as the tech would have to give them CPR.
Yeah. I wasn't a weekend on a weekend on the new job. I was already doing CPR on people. You know, they don't. Yeah, until we get the machine on.
So you do like. You would do the CPR and then you try to get a machine on that does it, or what?
Yeah, that's the goal. Because a machine is much more consistent than people. And you can, and machines don't get tired. Or if the battery starts dying on the Lucas, you just plug it in and keep going, right?
Yeah.
You know, the Lucas don't care.
Battery starts dying on Elmer, you dump a Red Bull down his
exactly, you know.
Keep going then.
So what happens if, let's say for whatever reason, we can't get the Lucas right away, or we don't, or whatever, then you trade off every 2 minutes. Like there's 2 people, one on that side, one on this side. I'm doing chest compression, 2 minutes. Boom, at the pulse check, we switch. Because if you don't, you will wear out. Like 2 minutes is not bad, you know, but you will wear out.
So you'd have a tech.
2 minutes is a long time.
You'd have a tech doing that, and then maybe a nurse on the other side doing it, like in the night, since you don't have multiple techs.
Exactly. So that's kind of But yeah, there are times when the one end doesn't have a clue what the other end's doing. But usually, you want those nurses to kind of help take care of the other people, and
Okay. And so the other one here is also just kind of somewhat redundant, but just kind of your normal routine. Maybe as far as getting there, what you do as you get there.
it takes, so obviously you get on shift.
Is there like a employee entrance where you
Yep.
have a swipe card? Or?
No, we just scan ourselves in. We clock in online through our phones, and you basically get in. The first thing I do is, as soon as I'm clocked in, I go to the nurse's station, basically get report. Or the charge nurse tells you, like as a tech, you go in and charge nurse will say, Elmer, you're going to be on the floor. So then I would find the other tech that was on the floor and what's going on. Anything, and the tech might say.
And you'd be taking that tech's place because their shift is about to end.
Yep, their shift is about to end. And I would find out what they're doing, what needs to be done. And basically, as a nurse, I would go in, I would get a zone, and I would get report from that zone, from that nurse, and be like, he would tell me what's going on with all these people. And then I would go from there. And it takes 4 hours until you get a handle on what's going on. Like after 4 hours, you kind of know your people. But for those first 4 hours, it is a little bit of you kind of know, this person's got this going on. But yeah, usually.
Do the shifts overlap a little bit?
Yes, in the emergency department is a little bit different than upstairs. Upstairs, they primarily have 2 shifts. They have 7A, 7P, 7P, 7A. In the emergency department, we have a lot of overlapping shifts because think about it. In the morning, it's going to be slow. It gets busier through the day. So in the morning, I think it's like 4 nurses come in, 7A, 7P. And then we have a 9A to 7P comes in. And then we have 2 nurses come in at 11 to 11. We have a nurse that comes in from 1 to 1. And we have a nurse that comes in from 3 to 3. And then it's the 7P, 7A. And so that your goal is to keep because usually by 3 in the morning, it is very manageable for the 4 nurses. So, it includes the charge nurse.
As far as like the tech in the evening, you would be taking their place, but how much would you overlap with that other floor tech?
We have 1 mid-shift tech. That's from 11 to 11. So
11 to 11, and you're doing 7 to 7, and so
obviously
several hours
that tech would overlap 4 hours.
Oh, okay. So those first 4 hours where you don't really know what's going on, there's someone that does.
Yeah, and then there's 3 techs. From 11 to 11, we got 3 techs working. And
from 7 to 11.
Yeah, or from 11A to 11P, there's 3 techs.
Oh, okay.
And then outside of that window, we only have 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometimes just 1.
And if there is 3, there'd be 2 on the floor and 1 on the hut.
Yep.
Okay, I think that's about all the questions. Also, I'm just looking at my timer here, and we are way over 45 minutes.
Okay. All right. Well,
but
you can cut anything out.
I don't mind. So going on after the 5 minutes of questions that turned out way more than that. Kind of have your grand finale story. See if we have any.
So speaking of adrenaline.
Hey guys, Editor Elson from the future here. So unfortunately, the third story was about a topic that YouTube really does not like, and I'll just cut that out, put it in a separate video. Link will probably be in the description. It might be age restricted because some of it is a little bit violent, but it does turn out all okay in the end. So if you want to see that, go click that below, and thanks for watching.
I think with that, we'll kind of wrap this up. Is there anything else you want to say yet?
Not really. I mean, that's sort of the story, of what happens,
You glad you did your two years of hard work to get in there?
And that's because, at first, I'll admit, the first 4 weeks on that I was a tech, I was like, why do I want to be a nurse? Like I was so overwhelmed with trying to keep up with just being a tech.
Mm-hmm.
And us techs, I mean, we have a stressful job, but at the same time, our stress is not related to liability as much.
You're less directly
Right.
responsible.
And so I didn't mind. Like working the floor was fun because if we had a patient that was dying, it was not my job to figure out how to get him going, like how to stabilize him.
And then if you could help save their life,
Right.
it's still that.
Yeah.
You know?
And I still get my name on the list, right? As this person was involved in the team, right?
Yeah.
But I knew that in 2 years, I am going to be so comfortable at my job. I'm going to wish I could do more. And my next option is to be a nurse.
Yeah.
Because I'm already advanced tech.
So you might as well start doing that now.
I'm already as far up the ladder as I can go as a tech, and I want to do more. And so now, and I knew that it takes 2 years to get my degree. I just will start now. And that's exactly what happened. Now I'm so comfortable with my job. It's like, now I'm like, well, what next?
About time to move on.
Yeah, it's time to move on. And so I'm happy about the chance of moving on, and I'm glad for the experience. Like I know that if I end up, we'll see how I do as a nurse, but if I end up being a good nurse, it'll be because of the experience I got, because I got to see things.
Good deal. Well, I think I'll wrap it up with that. So that's all for this episode of the EJMast Plus podcast. And the last one I did was with the Miller Boys. You should go check that one out. This podcast is available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It is also on YouTube. If the way to get that link is through my website, you go to ejmast.weebly.com, and I got a website there. I got some pages with different stuff, like a page with my podcasts. I have another tech podcast that I randomly post on every few months or so, and then I try to every second week of the month release a podcast on this one, EJMast Plus, and you can find all the links on the website as well. And I did some video projects that are on there as well, so go check that out. And until next time, thanks for listening/watching. There's a video version on Spotify and YouTube. And until next time, God bless. I forgot to say thanks for coming on, but thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Is through my website. You go to ejmast.weebly. Perfect. Now I just gotta edit it pretty out. Kinda. You got anything else you want to say about college?
Not necessarily. It was a good experience, but it was definitely a lot of anxiety. And sometimes I can't believe I actually got through that. There was a couple times I was pretty sure I wasn't gonna make it.
About you were